All right, in this explainer, we're going to deconstruct a really provocative analysis. It paints a picture of what a second Trump term might look like, a speculative future where the agency ICE becomes this huge flashpoint for a nation that's already on edge. So let's dive right in. So the analysis we're breaking down today starts with something pretty chilling. It points to that dystopian movie Civil War and basically says, hey, what you saw on screen, that could be our reality. And, this isn't just for dramatic effect. It's a clear signal right from the start that the entire argument is going to be framed with this sense of urgency, like a warning. Okay, so to build its case, the source first needs to set the scene. And the scene it paints is a United States just gripped by fear and uncertainty. And the picture it paints is, well, it's pretty disturbing. We're talking about claims of masked federal agents from ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, snatching people in broad daylight, right off the streets, from malls, parking lots, you name it. The argument here, according to the source, is that this isn't just about deportation policy. No, it's about creating this constant atmosphere of fear, this feeling that anyone could be targeted just based on how they look. You know how they say every fire starts with a spark? Well, according to this analysis, the spark that could set off a nationwide crisis is the story of one woman, a name that becomes a rallying cry for an entire movement. So the source really zeroes in on this one incident. On January 7th, it lays out this absolutely tragic sequence of events. A 37-year-old mother, a U.S. citizen named Renee Nicole Good, she drops her daughter off at school, and on her way home, she's shot and killed by an ICE agent, Jonathan Ross. And to make matters even worse, the source claims that other agents there actually stopped her from getting medical help. And this is where you get two completely different stories. On one hand, you have the administration's official line. It was justified self-defense against a so-called domestic terrorist. But then, on the other hand, you have the source's claim, which says it has video footage showing an unprovoked shooting of a citizen. The analysis even goes on to allege that President Trump himself justified it, saying she was being disrespectful to the agents. But here's the thing. For the source, this isn't just about one tragic incident. No, it's about a pattern that it claims has a really chilling parallel in history. And this brings us to the absolute core question of the whole analysis. Is what's being described in this speculative 2026 America just an echo of one of history's darkest chapters? Is history repeating itself? According to the source, the answer is a resounding yes. So the analysis draws a direct line to the Nazi brown shirts, also known as the SA. It describes them as essentially a paramilitary group that used intimidation and straight-up violence to create chaos, crush their opposition, and ultimately pave the way for Hitler's rise to power. Okay, so this table really lays out the direct comparison the source is making. It alleges that ICE, much like the brown shirts, is being used as a paramilitary force, even calling it Trump's private army. The tactics, it claims, are all about provoking public anger, specifically in areas that are Democratic strongholds. And the supposed goal? Well, it's the exact same. Create chaos to justify a massive power grab. This right here is the absolute heart of the source's entire argument. And the source argues these parallels aren't just in actions, but in language, too. It points to this supposed Homeland Security slogan, one of ours, all of yours. The analysis interprets this as a pretty clear threat of collective punishment, right? The message being, if you hurt one of our agents, we will come after all of you. And then, the source immediately puts that slogan right next to this infamous one from Nazi Germany. By showing them side by side, the analysis is making a very bold claim that the similarity in the tone, in the message, it's not an accident. It's a deliberate echo of historical fascism. It even points to a Department of Labor tweet that supposedly used the phrase, one homeland, one people, as more evidence for this claim. All right, so if that historical parallel is the what, then the next big question is why? What's the end game here? Well, the source lays out what it claims is a very deliberate step-by-step plan to seize and hold on to power. Here's how the theory goes, according to the source. Step 1, use ICE brutality to make people really, really angry. Step 2, let that anger boil over until protests turn violent, maybe even help it along. Step 3, use that chaos as the perfect excuse to declare a state of emergency, maybe even martial law. Step 4, cancel or postpone the midterm elections, which the analysis predicts would be a big loss for the Republicans. And then, the final step, use the crisis to lock down power for good. It's presented as a calculated strategy using chaos as a tool. But the analysis doesn't just stop at this alleged plan. It makes it clear that this whole strategy isn't just happening in a vacuum. There's a response. And that's where it shifts focus to the American people. And the public, according to this analysis, is not taking this lying down. Not at all. In response to Renee Good's death and everything else with ICE, massive protests just explode in cities all over the country. We're talking New York, Chicago, even Salt Lake City. It ignites a truly national movement. And these aren't just directionless protests. They have very clear goals. The source points to specific demands. They want Agent Ross arrested, they want the Homeland Security Secretary, Christina Ohms, to resign, and it even highlights some of the creative, grassroots tactics being used, like protesters camping out and blasting music all night outside hotels where agents are staying, just to disrupt their operations. And what's fueling all this outrage? Well, the source points to a really stark statistic. More than 30 deaths in ICE custody in just the last year alone. The argument is that this number shows that Renee Good's death isn't just a one-off tragedy, it's part of a much larger pattern. And that realization is what helps turn the anger over one incident into this powerful, nationwide movement. But here's the thing, the analysis doesn't just leave us in this place of despair. It actually ends with a really powerful message about the importance of civic action. It basically argues that when you're faced with a scenario this grim, the last line of defense for democracy, it isn't the courts, it isn't the media, it's the people standing together. And so the whole analysis leaves us with this one kind of haunting question. When it feels like these warnings from history are being ignored, can a nation actually pull itself back from the brink? Is just seeing the pattern enough to change where it's all headed? It's a really provocative thought to end on.